Hello everybody, and welcome to our second day of our spring summit. And we're going to be doing something a little bit different today, and I think this is probably the first time we've attempted to make a stuffie live on camera. So I'll tell you what, I'm a little nervous. Yeah, we're gonna pull this off. This is obviously designed by Krista. She is our felt stuffie expert, and Krista has been making stuffies for us for what has it been, Anna? About 8.5 years now? 8 years?
8 years.
Yes. So she started out with very basic stuffies, and then little by little she's made them much more complicated. Some of them standing, some of them more realistic, and this one today that we're going to make is a bit more of a caricature of a dog, so a bit more playful because they are easier. So if you wanted to start making stuffies, something like this is a great place to start.
Yes.
All right, before we jump in, just a few notes. We have Anna in the back of the room here, and she's going to be monitoring questions so that she can call out. If you have questions, go ahead and ask them in the questions section. And we're also doing a giveaway today. Yay! We're going to send you, the winner, a box of craft goodies. So if you want to enter into that, just go ahead and introduce yourself and say where you're from. And at the end of this lesson, we'll go ahead and draw someone's name. All right. Anything else, Anna? Am I forgetting anything?
No.
Okay.
So excited for today.
Yes, this is really fun. So, you know, obviously Krista is our expert. I think I'm okay making stuffies, and as someone who's not quite advanced, I feel as advanced as Krista, I feel like I have some pretty good tips and tricks to throw out there to help people who are newer. And then Emily here, she's becoming our expert in embroidery, which we're going to talk about that a bit later as well. Something to remind you all, if you have not taken our felt stuffie class yet, there's it's called 8 Easy Steps for Creating Any Felt Stuffie, and that's over in our Craft Academy, and that's under our skill courses. And something that I did when we released this class a few years ago is I made these really great references, and this is for basic stitches for left-handed people and then for right-handed people. So this is a great place to, you know, have this handy so you understand which stitches that you're going to be making. And it's funny because I usually hold my felt in this direction when I'm working, but you can just turn your paper depending on how you hold your felt. So I just wanted to point that out for anybody who's interested in making these. All right, I've been working on this all weekend. I sat there in the evenings prepping everything because there's no way we're going to finish these in 1 hour. I would say you could probably do this stuffie in about 3 hours, maybe 4, depending on how fast you stitch, and totally worth it. And I re-fell in love with needle and thread and hand stitching. So, all right, let's get started. I'll show you the materials we have on hand. We have some felt. You can use, you know, whatever felt that you want to. We prefer, you know, using the wool blend. That stitches well, it holds its shape well, it's not as expensive as full wool felt, and of course we have all the colors. And we picked the colors to kind of match Jake and Enzo. Jake's her dog, Enzo's my dog. And then something I'm going to show you is how to alter your pattern so that you can make it a bit more like your dog, because you might have a different type of dog that's not, you know, our dogs, so you might want to make it look more like yours, and there's easy ways to do that. All right, so we have the felt. We also have the embroidery thread to match. So we have both the colors of the felt, because when we're stitching on, we want to, you know, pretty much match the felt, and then this is the decorative embroidery for the little flowers. All right, we have our little scissors, and this is my favorite. It has the curved tip right here. You can also, we have some DMC scissors, and then this is the Kai scissor. I have some pens. I do like to use clips a lot. This is probably something Krista doesn't use as much. She'll use pens, but I love the clips. Of course, the embroidery needles, which are specific to embroidery thread, they have a bigger opening. This is our stuffing tool, and I'll show you how we use this. This is brilliant. This is something that we found a few years ago, and it really did change the game. I love using my my needle threader. I think as I get older, my eyes aren't as good, so this is really handy to have. You know, I have this little thimble. If you're going through a few layers, you might want this. We have the disappearing ink pen to mark your eyes. And then we have a 6mm craft eyes. And these are the safety eyes so that they won't pop out. And I like these better than beads or buttons because they sit really nice and close to the stuffie.
And they're nice and shiny.
And they're nice and shiny like eyes, yes. A little bit of tacky glue here for adding on details. There we go. I'll hold it still for you. All right. Of course, stuffy puff. We have some just typical stuffy puff. And then something that Krista has not used a lot, but might be in the future. And these are the polyfill beads. Or no, poly, what are they called? Poly, oh boy, I just forgot the name of them.
Well, they're just some
poly something.
They're just little plastic beads
yes,
to give some weight.
Some weight. It will come to me in a second. All right, is that all? Did we get everything?
I think so.
Okay. I have a couple of things over here on the side. I am going to change up the tails, so I grabbed the wire and then the wire cutters. So this is our chenille strips. Okay. Anything else I can think of here? I'm going to move all this stuff. So I also have the nice thing about our new the way that we do our lesson plan now is you can just print them out, and it's so handy to have those. I used it the whole weekend when I was working on this. Here, we need these needles, so I'll keep them in the middle. And I'm going to work over here. So we've already prepped quite a bit of this, these little dogs, because we wanted to get a head start so we could finish them. I think there's 2 sets. Oh yeah, we can do those. All right, and you can see here I've altered this dog so that it looks a little bit more like Enzo. You know, before I put his ears on, he could also look like a husky. So what I did is I took the pattern that, you know, Krista had made, and I just made a few adjustments. I feel like this little face is for a fluffy dog, so I trimmed it up for a thinner dog. These are the same ears, but I added the little brown patches for Enzo. So that's just a way that you can go ahead and pick colors and make little shapes that match your dog. I looked at a photograph of him when I was doing that.
Yeah, and I love this little brown that you added in.
Yes.
So cute.
And I added that. I just took this little marker and I just went in here very lightly and brushed the felt, and then I used my finger to blend it in just to add that detail. And again, this is just me. This is how I roll, right? I have to add my own little details, but it's up to you. I mean, you can just make this cute little simple dog, and that's adorable too. Yeah, so we also added a little corgi bum here.
Yes. If he's going to be Jake, he needs the little corgi bum.
Yeah, so this one doesn't have it, but we do have it, and we can add that template in if anybody wants it. So it looks something like this. Okay? All right, so let's get started. The first thing that you'll want to do is put all of the details of the face onto your dog. And you can see we already finished it because I wanted to get ahead. And this would all be done with a whip stitch. I'm going to show you guys the whip stitch in just a second. So you'll go ahead and place that. You can use the template. Krista has made these beautiful, templates that you can refer to. And you can see exactly where the placement of all the parts and pieces are. Can you see that? There we go. So I don't know if you can see that on camera, but there's some very light lines there. So she helps us out in getting things lined up nicely.
All right. Well, let's just say that one more time. So before you attach these together at all, you're going to want to have these separate, and you'll stitch on all these details.
Yes,
and
with a whip stitch.
With the whip stitch.
Okay, so we have all those done already, and I wanted to show you guys a whip stitch. So we each have one piece to finish the whip stitch.
I'll be making a little ear.
So Emily's finishing an ear, and I'm finishing a foot. So we saved, here I'm going to move these over so you can see it easier. And I've already finished one side, and I just need to do the other. So I will, in this case, I really do like having these little clips rather than pins, because then it doesn't poke my hand while I'm stitching. So I have, for whip stitch, Krista indicates using one thread, and that's what I did throughout, both of these animals, getting them ready. So just one thread. You have the shorter thread here that you will not be stitching with. It's just holding your thread into your needle. And I've tied 2 knots on the end. And if there's any questions, just call them out for us. So I'm starting on the back so that my knot is behind inside, and I'm pulling it through. Now I'm going to stitch at an angle across the felt for the, the top brown felt onto the black felt. But what will happen is my threads will go straight. So I'll have these little tiny rows of threads, and that's called a whip stitch. There's a couple different names for them, but for this case, we're calling it a whip stitch. So I'm going exactly across from my first thread at an angle and then pulling it back out. See if I can do this on camera without getting all sweaty. No pressure, right? And you're going through, a couple layers of felt, so it does get a bit tight sometimes. Can you see that? Is that enough? Are we getting it close enough to the camera?
A little bit.
Okay. Yeah, and still see it, Matthew? I can hold it up, still see it. Okay, this will work right there. Can you see that? All right, so little teeny stitches. And the thing that you really want to watch for when you're working on your whip stitches and your blanket stitches, and I'm not perfect, but I'm doing, I think the more we do it, the better we get, is to make them even. So you want them evenly spaced. And sometimes, if you feel like a stitch really stands out because it's not even, pull it out. You can pull it out, pull the thread off the needle, use the needle to just pull it back out, and then re-thread your needle and keep going.
So this is a pretty basic stitch, and just for me, I'm going to just pop in here really
Sure.
quickly. I'm working with this little white thread and just putting this ear on here, and I'm bringing that needle back down right along the edge of the white felt and this camel colored felt.
So you're doing it a different direction.
I am doing it a different direction, but this is still the whip stitch, so I'm
Right.
just...
Yeah, so that's a really good point. Rather than trying to go through 2 layers, you can just do a half at a time. So you can go down and then back up, so you don't have to do it at an angle.
I prefer, generally, I've been doing a lot of embroidery, and while there's a lot of embroidery techniques have you kind of goes in with the needle and out in one swoop, I personally don't love doing it that way, as I find that it kind of messes with my tension and my stitches aren't quite as precise. Well, this takes a little bit longer. I get a result that I'm happier with. And
I think that's a great tip.
I like
Yeah.
to take my time when I'm doing this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a really great tip. So I'm finished with my row, and I'm just pulling my needle out here. It's going through the 2 layers, and I'll just do a double wrap, and that will tie my knot. And one of the things that, well, a couple things, I'm going to show you guys a few different options. You can leave your thread long and then tuck it in, or you can take your needle and move it across kind of between the layers or even behind and bury your thread. I think there's another pair of scissors over there
too.
So you can bury your thread inside and then clip it off right against the felt, and then the tail is hidden inside. Does that make sense? All right, so again, one of the things that Krista suggests is when you're doing these little details, especially on the feet, when you have multiple layers, you'll want to cut the back part off. It will make it so much easier when you're sewing. So I'm going to fold this back. I don't want to cut it too tight. I want to leave a bit, but I'm going to leave probably about 1/4 of an inch overlay. Then I also want to angle my corners so that these little edges don't pop out on the edge of my foot. All right, I'll place these together.
I remember when Krista taught us that, and my mind was kind of blown, because it's just those little secret things you can't even tell, but it makes all the difference.
It really
with
does.
how it sits.
Yeah. All right, so this little foot, this is the top of the foot that will be against the body, so the top of the leg, and then this is the bottom of the foot. So what I'll want to do to stitch is leave the top open so I can use the stuffy puff and stitch around the base. So doing that, I'm going to switch sides here, and I'm going to switch thread. I do want black thread for this. And I'm stitching both the brown and the black, but I like that detail. I think that's just a fun little detail of having that contrasting thread. So it's up to you. You could either go, switch colors if you want to, or you can just go ahead and do the whole thing black. That's really your call.
Hopefully this is
plus,
making
please?
sense to everybody.
Yeah, if you have any questions, I mean, we're kind of all over.
We're just gonna power through this.
So if you have any questions or if anything's confusing, of course, you can go ahead and use the step-by-step that Krista provided, which is also really good. And this is really more about tips and tricks. So this is a tip. When you're pulling out your embroidery thread, this is the larger wrap and then the smaller side. You can find your end on the larger side and then just pull it out. If you try to pull it the other direction, it will tangle. Right? Is that right, Emily?
That is correct.
And then here's another one. So whip stitches are one thread, and then blanket stitches, according to Krista, are two.
For this project.
For this project are two. So I'm going to go ahead and there's 6 threads in a floss. I'm going to go ahead and find 2. Pull out 2 threads. And there's different ways of pulling these apart, and they do get tangled. So here's my trick. This is the one that works best. Put this one in my mouth and then just pull.
That's definitely one way to do it.
Emily's going to show us another way.
I tend to, if I have this whole piece, you can't do this if your thread is too long, so you'll want to make sure about 2 feet or less for this technique, and just take one end and select your 2 threads and then pinch it in your fingers and just gently pull, and it will kind of gather on the other side. If it starts to tangle, this is where you want to stop and kind of untangle it, but usually you can kind of just wiggle that thread. So now here I have the 2, and then this is the remainder. Here you can just straighten it right out.
So that's another option. I always find that it works better for me to keep my threads apart when I pull them apart and make kind of that Y shape, but figure out what works best for you.
Yeah. Well, if you're working with longer thread, the method I just showed will not work. It will tangle.
So here I have my 2 threads, and here's my overlap. And again, I never want to sew with all 4. I'm only going to sew with the 2. I'll place a knot at the bottom, and I do like to leave a bit of a tail because then I can hide it inside easier and it won't pop out. So I'll probably leave about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch tail.
I do appreciate you saying that, because when I started embroidering, I really had a hard time finding any information on how to use the thread in that way. You put the needle through, and in traditional sewing, a lot of the time you'll be working with both sides and tie it at the bottom. But for embroidery, you want that loose, short tail, and then the long one with the knot on it that you're working with.
Okay. All right, so now I'm going to show you guys the blanket stitch. The blanket stitch is going to go, so I've started it in the middle so that my tail's inside, and it's coming up through the top. I'm going to go back underneath and stitch right through the same spot. And this is a rhythm that I like to get in when I'm blanket stitching, is I'll hold it at a certain angle and I'll use my thumb to mark where I'm at, and then I always wrap underneath. So I wrap towards me and back up. Okay, and then my thumb is indicating exactly how far in I stitch. So that's why I use my thumb. Always hit my nail, not my finger. And then bring it through, straight through. You don't want to do an angle, just straight through the bottom, up through the top, and then wrap it around. And once you get going, you can hum along pretty quick with this blanket stitch.
It does get quick. I think the biggest thing with the blanket stitch to remember is you always want to
wrap.
Going the same direction over and over. Don't go, up and then down. You always want to be going up and then up and up.
Oops. Start at the bottom, going up. I'm going to move this closer to my face, Matthew. It's black, so it's hard to see.
And over here, I just got a nice little knot in my thread. So we'll see if I can get this out. I might just cut it and start fresh.
Oopsie, I forgot to loop it. But I haven't pulled it all the way through yet, so I can just go in and loop it. I think I got distracted there.
Sorry.
And I also got a knot. Okay, which I'm just going to keep going. We're going to pretend that didn't happen because we don't have time. Any questions, Anna?
So this is not necessarily related to this, but it's about embroidery, the ladder stitch. Is that something you go over, Emily?
We will, yes.
I don't personally use a ladder stitch very often in my style of embroidery, as usually that's kind of something that you're going to be using to combine pieces of felt or do appliques or that kind of thing.
I'm going to show the ladder stitch.
So she'll show it.
Yeah.
I don't use it that much. I'm quite unfamiliar with it, so I'm excited to learn it.
Yeah, so ladder stitch is more for attaching pieces versus in decorative embroidery, which you do, Emily.
Yes.
And well, I'll be showing you how to use the ladder stitch to attach the ears and to attach the legs and feet. So that's where we'll use it. And it's also in the workbook. You can see exactly how that works. So you can see as I go along, again, it's about making those stitches nice and even. The lines of the stitch will be coming directly. Here, let me get it nice and close here. Let's see.
Might be easier to see mine since it's not
we got
black.
it. And then the edge, you can see how that, this where I wrapped it around makes a nice little clean line of thread along the edge. And that's why we love the blanket stitch, is it's kind of a pretty decorative way to finish your felt pieces.
And one more thing that I thought of and now forgot.
Okay. You're getting that needle very close to my face there, girl.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm just continuing on with my blanket over here.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
I did, but now I forgot it.
Okay.
I'm very into this ear stitching. Oh yes. What I was going to say is if you're doing a lot of blanket stitch and you really want to make sure you get those stitches nice and even, a really great technique that I learned is you can just use like a permanent marker or a little paint pen or something and actually draw a little dash or the width of the stitch that you want on your finger, and then you can hold it up right to where you're stitching, and then you'll have that line that you can be like, oh, that's my measurement. So you can move your finger along as you go. And I usually when I do it, I'll do it on the front side and the side, so I can kind of work it in any direction.
I think that's great for a beginner. And I'd imagine Krista, since she's been doing this for so long, her eye is trained, for getting those stitches perfectly. But for those of us who are still, in the beginner intermediate phase, it does help to have those little tricks.
And we have a question from Shirley. What are the pros and cons of wool versus poly or a wool blend? Are there benefits in using a wool felt for this project?
Yes, so I would say that I would never ever, me personally, use a poly felt, partly because it makes me cringe to touch it. There's just something about the texture that's I can't handle. But that's me, use it if you have it. It feels a little bit less high quality. The wool blend felt has a nice quality and a nice hand to it with the blend, and it has the structure of the blend. So it's not 100% wool felt, so it won't stretch as much, it won't shrink as much, and it's really easy to handle, and they can make it thinner. The full wool felts are thicker, and they are a bit more stretchable, just like any type of wool.
And shrinkable.
And shrinkable. They're gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. If I were making a larger stuffie that I wanted to be kind of more of an heirloom and, I wanted it to look extremely posh, I would use a full wool felt. But it is a thicker felt, so you can't get as much detail.
And it's a bit more expensive.
And it's a
so
bit
that's
more.
this is a great learning felt, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, the polyester, full 100% polyester felt, I just probably, if you can avoid it, unless you love it, that's fine. It's great for kids. If you want kids to be making crafts, I think that's a really inexpensive choice.
Especially if you have it on hand. You might as well use it.
Always use what you have on hand.
We have another question. For people with arthritis, could you use a machine to do a blanket stitch?
No, you can't. What you probably could do instead, if you have a sewing machine that you can handle really easily, is just do a zigzag. But that, that's always a little bit harder to control. Yeah.
Yay, I finished.
You could also, you know, that we have some really simple projects on our site where we actually used glue. They're a bit more for kids. You know, we did those puppets where we used the glue. All right, I'm coming around here to the top, and I'm going to show you guys how to use this really great stuffing tool. If there's another question, Anna, go ahead and toss it up.
Yes, we do have another question. Is there a top and a bottom to the thread to prevent it from tangling or knotting as you sew?
No, but here's a trick I was going to show you guys. So one of the things I noticed, because you can see how it tangles as I bring it around, every once in a while, I'll just hold
that's
the
what I
needle.
was just doing.
I just hold the needle like
Let it
this.
untangle a little bit.
Yeah, and just kind of shake it out, and that helps. All right, so I am here. I have just an opening at the top, and
I'm finishing my blanket over
Okay.
here. We're cutting this.
Yep, we're cutting that one off. All right, so we're not stuffing the ears, but the little feet need stuffed. So I'm going to take, this has a kind of a fork at the end. I think there's 4 little tiny pieces.
If you don't have this, you can use something like a skewer or
You can, but
anything
you
like
can't
this.
do this.
This tool specifically works really well because it has that kind of little fork split at the end. But again, use what you have on hand unless you want to get fancy.
Yeah, and you know, if I'm using more, I can twist it, but there's just such a small piece there, it's harder to twist. So I'm going to go ahead and make a small bunch at the bottom here, and then use the fork to stuff it in to my little foot. And again, if you have a skewer, if you don't have one of these, that will work as well. And the nice thing about having this longer point is that you can get it all the way down to the foot, the base of the foot. I'll add some more in because it's not quite, I want it somewhat puffy, but not too puffy. All right, you got your ear on. Why don't you go ahead and sew those on? So one of the things that Krista does with her ears is she will sew them as she does her, as she closes up the animal itself. She'll sew them in at that point. For saving time today, I went ahead and stitched the front of my ears, or the ears onto the front of my face, and then I'll show you, you know, how to close this up with the ears already on. So the way she'll do it is she'll come along, she'll stitch one side of the ear, go to the back and stitch it on the back, and then come back and continue. So this is just an option. I feel like it's a great option for someone who is a bit more of a beginner. It'll give you a bit more control rather than trying to manage so many layers of felt. You're just managing the ears onto the front of the head.
Yes, I'm a little nervous about this one. I haven't made very many stuffies, even though I love embroidery. I'm new to making stuffies.
That's why you're here.
I think this is technically my second one, which you did a lot of the work.
I know, I should have had you work on these this weekend. All right, so now I'm going back and I'm finishing my blanket stitch to close up my foot. The ears you don't need to close up, you can leave those open on the end. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. How are we doing? We have a half an hour, we're doing pretty good. Show you all the details. Any other questions, Anna?
No, I think the word you were looking for earlier, though, for the weight is poly pellets.
Poly pellets, thank you.
Yes, and we added a link for that.
Yes, and we do have those in our shop. I think, you know, I was talking to Krista about it the other day and like asking her if she was opposed to them, and she's not. I guess she's not used to using them, so she hasn't, but I think she'll be using them a bit more in the future. All right, this is nice and tight, and we're gonna finish this one up.
When you attached the ears, did you just stitch through the front layer? Yeah, it looks like you did. So it's just the front layer of the felt.
Yes, I only stitched them through the front because I need to keep an opening. Well, actually, I'll do the opening on the side.
But what I was asking is if you stitch through both the...
No, you just need to attach it.
One.
Yep. Yeah, you need to attach it. It's not really a structural stitch, so it doesn't need to be so strong. It's just more to keep things in place. I'm telling you what, this is a lot different than teaching paper flowers on a live video.
Yeah.
All right, I have to read this comment from Shirley.
Okay.
Loving all these beginner options. Have always admired the stuffies you show, but have been intimidated. I think that I can make one of these pups printing out the PDF now.
Yes.
That is what we want to hear.
That is. And I think that one of the things that we're learning as we're really doing a deep dive into our customers and understanding how you guys feel, and Anna knows this because we talk about this a lot, is sometimes when we're so close to it and we have the, I'll say in quotes, expert mind, we forget what it's like to be a beginner. And that's why I thought it would be really fun for us who are not quite as advanced as Krista to teach this class.
Yes.
Because we see it different. She has it down. and she knows exactly how to do it as an expert, but we're offering you some of our tips.
I think that's a great example of doing something that you're not comfortable with, just because it kind of refreshes your beginner brain.
Yes, it
And
does.
look how much fun you guys are having.
It is a lot of fun. Okay, I did not bury my thread there, and I'm sad I didn't, because now I have a little thread poking out. So just a reminder, burying your thread is a great plan. Okay, I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing with the tail. So Enzo has a bit more of a wiry tail. This tail here is a fluffy dog tail, which is super cute. I guess you can't see that. There we go. Can you see that? There we go. So it has more of a fluffy dog tail, and Enzo has a thin wiry tail. So I altered the template just a bit, and I went ahead and slid a chenille strip down, all the way down, and I'll go ahead and clip that nice and short. I think that after making these, I spend too much time running a business and less time actually crafting as much as I'd like to. But doing this project and prepping for this class makes me want to do this more often. It's kind of like knitting. And the thing about embroidery or making these type of projects, you can take them anywhere, You can sit on the plane and work on projects, or sit in front of the TV, and it's not as messy, as working with paper and glue. So
I agree. I love embroidery for that reason. For a while, I was embroidering my purse for my personal bag, and I kept all my materials in my purse, and I would just take it with me wherever I went.
And then just sit and embroider it. So I'm going to go ahead and close off his tail, just to get that done. Now that I have the wire in there, and that way I can move his little tail around. All right.
Shirley is wondering if you have any advice on how to make the tan and white one that Emily is working on to look more like a Chihuahua.
Yes, so Chihuahuas usually have less hair. They're not quite as fluffy. So I would do similar to what I did here with Enzo and make the face a bit thinner. You can see how I moved Enzo's nose down a bit as well, so it looked like he has a longer nose versus, here, flip it over. Or actually, here, I'll show it on this one, versus this one has more of a little pug nose. So, it's similar to this, I would say maybe, but you can use whatever colors you want, obviously, but just kind of altering the shape of the face. And you can see how I made the cheeks a bit thinner. So that's what I would do. I would kind of take off the sides just a bit. All right, I'm going to bury this thread so I don't forget again. It's such a good tip. Now if I can just remember it.
I don't want anybody to zoom into my whip stitch right there. It's very messy.
It's okay, we all start somewhere.
Yes.
Okay, now I am ready to assemble, but before we do that, I want to show you guys how to put the eyes in. You have the eyes over there. And also, I want to show you kind of my rule of thumb for eyes.
Here, do you want to use mine as an example?
Yeah, I'll use her. So I can't really draw on this one because you can't see it, but I also have a very clear area to put his eyes. So Krista does have an example of where to put the eyes, but I would say that if you're doing a character of a dog or a cat or something, you want to keep the eyes at least halfway down the face. If they go too high, it starts to look a little boogie-eyed, right?
A little human.
Yeah, a little human. So you want to keep the eyes lower on the face. So I like this area right here. I would say about, I don't know, a 1/4 inch above his nose. And another thing too is you don't want the eyes too close. You want them, it looks cuter to have the eyes a bit farther apart. So I like how, see how this curve is? I'm going to kind of place it right outside of that curve. And if you want to get your measuring device
It's
out,
a little high on that.
is that a
side.
little high? Okay, well, this is disappearing ink, so there, you can fix it. But you can see how there's a cuteness factor to keeping it low and a little further apart. And on mine, I'm just going to wing it because I can't use
You
the
have a
marker.
tap for that?
I do. So that's a disappearing ink pen. All right, there's 2 eyes for you. And then you can take your little tiny scissors and poke a very, very small hole into that spot.
I haven't used these safety eyes before. I'm excited to learn how to do this.
See, we have a beginner right
So you
here.
just poke a hole through the felt.
Yep, poke a hole through the felt. And you only want, you know, I've already sewed my back on, which you probably haven't done yet if you're watching there from home. And you can see how I have kind of a very specific area to put his eyes. So I'll just poke a hole. I don't really want to clip it because I don't want any.
The felt stretches, which
Yeah.
is nice. It will just kind of stretch right around.
And then I'll press my eye in. Oop. I think. Yeah, there we go. There's one eye.
Just kind of screw it in at this point.
Yep. If you do clip your felt, just be really, really careful because you don't want the hole to be so big that your eye would fall out. Okay, there we go. So there's one eye for Enzo. Oh, that looks so cute. It's starting to look like him now.
How do you
It
get
does
this
really
on?
look like him.
Yeah.
Pop, pop.
We have a question from Leanna.
Mhm.
Any suggestions on how to go about with a brindle colored dog?
I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, I would use markers. A brindle would be like a spotty. It's a multicolored dog.
Oh yeah, some markers would be nice.
Yeah, I would just use some markers. And you don't even have to blend them in quite as much. You could just use the marker and let the heavier color, you know. Oh my goodness, look at that.
This is so cute.
All right, once you get the eyes on, they start to look real. All right, then I'm going to place the little backer on. And
Ooh.
yep, it's a little tricky.
I definitely found that for my first experience here. There's kind of a flatter side and a side with indents, and it worked a little better when I put the indented side
Inside.
inside.
Okay,
'cause
good
it
to know.
pops in a little easier.
Okay.
Okay, I need to catch up and put my ear on here.
Anna is wondering what part is hand cut and what part do you cut on the cutting machine, and how do you keep your mats clean?
Yes. So
Felt and mats are not best of friends, I will admit.
So all of this was cut on the machine. And if you are interested in learning how to cut felt on the machine, go ahead and go watch our Cricut, our silhouette skill course, because we do go over it. And to keep the mats clean, I use one of those lint rollers, and just after you finish, just roll it off really well. All right, so there we go. Now I'm going to finish stitching around and get it into a place where I'm going to leave just the side of his head open so we can drop in the beads and then put the stuffie in. Keep the questions coming. These are really great questions, you
I'm
guys.
so far behind.
You're fine. We have 20 minutes.
And we're getting some questions on suggestions for different breeds. So do you have any suggestion for a Shih Tzu?
I think that if you're making different breeds, and it's going to be hard to kind of go in and answer every
Yeah.
breed. I think, look at
I'd
some,
have to look at a picture.
yeah, look at some photos of the Shih Tzu. Even you can look up other cartoon kind of representations of whatever dog you're trying to draw by looking up, your dog type and then maybe like a caricature or a cartoon. You can kind of study what features they chose to show. And then apart from that, I really think color is really just going to be the biggest thing. So don't get too stressed about making exact features.
Yeah.
And go more for color. You know, this is supposed to be cute. It's supposed to be a caricature.
A caricature. I probably went a little far on my representation of my dog, but that's just who I am. But, all right, so now I'm doing the blanket stitch again. I have my 2 layers of thread, and I'm just gonna whip this out so we can get it stuffed. Yeah, it's hard to, you know, I would say go back to the, is it a fluffy dog or is it a short hair dog? And then shape accordingly.
Shell was wondering, do you ever put a drop of glue when putting the eyes in?
You can, you don't have to. With the, I definitely do that when I'm doing a needle felted because it only has a needle. It doesn't have an actual backer on it. There's nothing really to back it onto. But I'm telling you, these backers do not come off. You would have to cut the backer off.
Or really pull.
Yeah, I don't even know if you could get it off that way. So that's why they call them safety eyes, because they won't come out, and it makes them safe for children. So they don't pop off. So no need. But one thing, you know, talking about glue, if you feel like you want to secure some of these pieces, can I have the camera here? If you want to secure these pieces in place before you stitch them, just add a drop of glue in the center. Try not to get it towards the edge because it does harden and then it's harder to get your needle through. But if you want to just add a little drop of glue to hold things in place. And also the tongue is added with glue.
Oh my gosh.
Did you just get a tangle?
No, I'm just confusing myself by turning it upside down and then doing things silly.
Okay. Well, something about tangles too, just to keep in mind, is when you get a tangle, don't pull it hard. You can get in there with your needle and untie it. Go straight in for the center knot where it's tangled and just kind of
slowly
unwork it. Believe me, I did that quite a few times this weekend.
Yes, and knots. It's part of the process when you're working with embroidery thread, and you'll get better at untangling them and avoiding them.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. All right, so now I've come to the ear, and since the front of my ear is already done, I need to stitch it onto the back, and I'm kind of confused because I'm stitching with my right hand even though I'm left-handed, and I need to do the same stitch, which now I have to work my brain backwards here. Okay, so I'm gonna go.
Now he has 2 ears, yay. If it's looking exactly like Jake, that would be floppy on one side.
What you're gonna do. You can add a few little stitches to make it floppy on one side. All right, go ahead and start sewing your head together. So I think that I would have been wise to have attached the back because I'm not able to do a blanket stitch backwards, you guys. So I'm gonna just go ahead and do a whip stitch for the back of the ears. It won't show it, and it will look just fine.
I did a whip stitch to attach my ears. I didn't do a blanket stitch.
Okay, I just used my my spit to get these ready here.
It's the easiest way.
I know. I keep looking at the time. I really want to show you guys how to stuff these things before we finish. Any other questions, Anna?
And no questions, but Kathy says the cutting machine courses are so worth it.
Oh, good. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, we didn't do a real detailed cut on felt, but we definitely show how to work with felt. And the thing that you want to keep in mind when you are cutting felt on a cutting machine is that it does overcut a bit. So little tiny details, you'll get little bits of in cut, if that makes sense.
Yes, definitely.
So just keep that in mind when you're using the cutting machine.
I think this project especially would be very easy to cut by hand. I ended up cutting some of mine by hand, and I think it's a pretty good, easy one to do by hand. And especially if you're wanting to customize it, you can print out the template. You can cut little pieces of paper to get the shapes that you want before you cut your felt. That way you can experiment with your customization.
That is a great idea. I actually did all of my details by hand as well. All right, I'm running out of thread, so I'm going to tie this one off
No, not.
and bury it. All right, I hope you guys are inspired. If you have not made a felt stuffie yet, you're going to want to do one. The thing that I want to start making too is some of that felt food, which is the same techniques as felt stuffies.
Yeah, it's just blanket stitch.
Lots of blanket
Lots
stitch,
of blanket stitch. You're going to get really good at blanket stitch.
which I think that's a great thing to get good at.
It's a very useful stitch. I've used it to repair some of my clothing recently.
So I'm going back to the thread that I used before. I still have 4 pieces, so now I'm just going to split it in half.
Try my technique.
All right, I'll try your technique. All right, that actually works pretty good, pretty good. I'm getting a little tangled here. Okay, well, I'll just cut it off. I'm not as delicate.
I seem to be able to go in with the blanket stitch on the back here. I'm just working a little sideways, so it's kind of slow.
Yeah, and one thing you'll notice, I mean, some of the colors of felt depend, because we try to have the biggest array of colors that we offer in our shop, but some of them are a bit heavier and some are a bit lighter. So if you're working in layers, you might find some colors easier to stitch through with multiple layers, if that makes sense.
Right, we have a question here. With the thread magic that we carry in our shop help
Yes.
against the tangling?
It might actually help. Yeah, I haven't, so that's something I haven't tried yet. I know that was something that Krista asked for, so she's definitely the one. But I think that it also helps you get your thread through your needle, because it will kind of give it a, it will tighten up the end of your thread. All right, and off I go. I'm stitching as fast as I can.
I know, I'm making a mess. Take your time when you do this. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, take your time. Don't do what we're doing. We're just trying to demo as fast as we can. And again, that's why I try to get as much done as possible before we got on video, so we could show you lots of details.
I think once I get to the center of my head, I'm going to go ahead and start stuffing just so that I can show it.
Okay.
And then I'll close it up afterwards.
Yeah, I think I'll end up closing mine up afterwards as well. And the nice thing, I mean, I think what I'll do is I'm going to leave the thread on the needle and just kind of tuck it into his ear, and then I can come back and finish closing it once I get it stuffed, which I am going to do right now. So I'm going to knot it off, but I'm going to keep the thread and put the needle in his ear just to keep it. And I'm going to show you guys. All right, this is where it gets a little tricky. You could probably use a scoop or a spoon if you wanted to. We're going to have little bouncing pebbles all over the... Okay, that's not going to work.
Another thing you could do with the
Get a funnel.
beads, you could get a funnel. You could also put them into like a little tie bag or something.
You could.
Yes. I'm just taking your extras and putting it in mine.
Thank you. So what I'd like on this dog, yeah, you could put the little beads inside of a little, one of those cotton bags that has the drawstring. So right now, I'm pressing it down and I have it about this full. And that's pretty good. I mean, that gives it some nice weight.
I left a big enough gap in mine
That you could just pour, yeah.
pour it in.
Mine wasn't quite that big. I'm gonna do a little bit more. Let's see.
Oh, that's very satisfying.
It really is. It's like a bean bag.
I want to fill my whole thing with this one.
And if you don't, if you don't have these, you could also use some sort of a seed or a rice or a anything
Could
like
you
that.
use beans?
You'd want to make them small. Yeah, some sort, and make sure that whatever you're putting in isn't going to go bad or attract any sort of little critters that you don't want. Okay. I don't know why my phone keeps going off because no one ever texts me.
You're very popular. What are you talking about?
That's not true. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and add the stuffy into the head because I will be closing it up. And you can decide just by feel how much you want in there, how tight you want it. I think that looks pretty good to me. And once you get it stuffed, to kind of hold it in place, I go back to my clips, or you can use pens. I like using clips, so I'm going to use those.
This is looking so cute.
This is looking cute.
I love my little corgi.
All right. Then I'm going to get back in here and...
I think I need a bit more stuffy puff.
Oh, yes, we have a whole bag here. There you go. And again, I'm going to just whip stitch the ear since I can't get in there and do my blanket stitch upside down. Maybe I could figure it out at some point, but not here on camera.
That's okay. I'm just going to pin mine, and then we can show
how to
put on the rest.
Would you like to show them how to do the ladder stitch?
I don't know how to do the ladder stitch,
Okay.
actually. That's a new one for me. I could follow the instructions in the book.
There we go. Okay. How are we doing here? I'm going to move this over here.
The great thing about embroidery and all these techniques is that they really do layer on each other. And you know, while I haven't done a ladder stitch before, I'm pretty comfortable with my needle and thread. I think I could figure it out pretty dang quick.
Yeah, and the ladder stitch is very similar to the whip stitch, except you stay on one side. So at the end of the day, it looks the same as a whip stitch, where you have just these straight little lines going up and down. But it's just a different way to get there. And it's perfect for attaching things like feet.
You could also potentially just glue on the feet.
You can. And there's a couple of the places in her instructions that shows, gluing on the tail, for instance. She didn't actually sew on the tail, she glued it on. So, yeah, just in case any of you wonder why Krista's not here, she actually moved to another state a few years ago. So
she's been mailing us all of her projects.
So we only get to see her once in a while. We miss her. We really miss her. She's such a sweetie. And
we do miss her, and I did ask her about the ladder stitch, and she sent me a post where she shows it in the photo tutorial, but I think it'd be helpful.
This one right here. So here's the ladder stitch right here. Can you see that? Whoop.
And you can find this whole workbook in the Stuffy class.
So there's the ladder stitch, blanket stitch, whip stitch, and this is left-handed, and then we have right-handed as well. So being a lefty-righty, I wanted to have both for everybody. So there's the ladder stitch. So, all right. How are we doing on time? We're about out of time here.
Yes, let's go ahead and attach our feet.
Okay.
Or maybe I'll do my little tail first, since that's just glue.
Go ahead and do your glue.
Can you pass me the glue, please? So you can see I've got this side of the head to still finish, but I'm going to finish that off camera. I'm excited to take this little guy home. I'll have to keep him away from Jake, though, because Jake will want to.
I think it's a chew toy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know we have a few projects on our site that are cat toys. I don't think we have any dog toys, but little cat toys that are made from felt. I know there's a sushi.
I'm so scared this is gonna pop.
Oh, is that one we haven't used yet?
Squeeze your glue too hard, and then all the glue comes out.
So here's something I'll just talk about right now. When we are not going to finish the scarf today, which we weren't sure we'd be able to anyway, which is a more decorative embroidery, and we will be doing decorative embroidery on Thursday, which I invite everybody to come. This is going to be so much fun. It's a great...
I'm excited.
Yeah, this is Emily's favorite thing to do. And so we'll go over these decorative embroidery steps for the little scarves on Thursday.
As well as doing the decorative stitches that I'm going to teach.
Okay. I'm almost done, you guys. Any questions, Anna?
I'm missing a flute.
Since we're getting close to the end, should we draw a winner?
Yes, and Peg says thank you for thinking of us lefties. So I don't know if you know, but Leah is a lefty.
I'm a ambi.
Yes.
So
You're a lefty in a righty world.
yeah, I mean, I could probably sew with my left hand as well, but I don't know, for some reason I'm doing it this way.
Sandra is wondering if we have a white wool blend felt that is more compact. She has found that the light colors are more loose.
Yeah.
You can always make them more compact just by getting them wet and kind of pressing them together and then letting them dry. That is how you make wool felt or wool blend felt, is just by pressing the fibers when they're damp. So it is a lot more malleable when it's wet. You know, be careful, but you can just kind of compress it and then let it dry and it will be a little bit thinner.
Yeah, that's a really great tip. I know Emily does that a lot because, as you'll find out when we talk about this, well, actually, I'll go over this in a second, but you do get your felt wet a lot.
I do.
Because you use the...
I use the water-soluble stabilizer all the time. It's one of my favorite tools. We'll go over all that later.
Yeah, we'll go in a second.
On Thursday.
Okay, so I'm going to... Go ahead.
So sorry. Anna is wondering if you could use rice and maybe lavender for stuffing.
That sounds
Yes,
great.
absolutely. What a great idea. I need some more black thread. I'm going to show you guys how to do a ladder stitch real quick. And then I have a few fun announcements, and then we're going to do the giveaway. So for the ladder stitch, I'm guessing she only uses one, but I can't remember. Can you tell me? I haven't done a ladder stitch yet for this.
All right, let's see here. It looks like she glues it and then puts a pin in it.
That's for the tail.
Nope. Apply a small amount of tacky glue to the back legs and pin them to the base of the body. Ladder stitch along the wider edge of the feet. To the
Okay, there
body
you go.
Using one strand.
Okay, so ladder stitch is one strand. And as you heard, Krista will add glue first before she stitches the feet on. So that's a really great tip. Give it some extra security so all the pressure is not on the thread itself, but you know, it has kind of a combination. And if you want to, you could also just hot glue them on and call it good.
Especially if it's just a decorative stuff.
Yeah. If it's something that someone might be playing with, you know, a child or a cat, you might want to add the stitches as well. Give it 2. All right, so here we go. I'm going to show you a ladder stitch real quick. So I have my foot in place, and I didn't put glue, but let's pretend like I did. And I'll take a pen and kind of hold it in place here. I'm just kind of adding that pin as a little bit more of a secure. I like to put my legs a bit further out to the side. Sorry, Matthew. He told me to stay in the center. I like to keep my legs a little bit further out from the center because I know my dog, he's really wide stanced. His legs aren't super centered. And I'll go ahead and start from I'm pressing my needle just underneath the leg. I'm going to bury my thread. I'm going to stitch it in.
I think when I put my arms on, I'm going to put them at a little angle like this.
That's a cute idea. Yeah, so really play with it depending on how your dog stands. All right, so then I'm going straight across, and I wish this wasn't black because it's hard to see. And I'm going to make kind of a back and forth. So straight across, straight up. I'm going straight across again, straight under. So it's like a box step. If any of you dance, you know what a box step looks like, right? So we're doing a box step with our needle here. And that's a really beautiful way to get this on. Now, it is an option. You could also do a whip stitch if you wanted to. So there's just different options. But that is a box step. And again, you can check it out in the little workbook.
These illustrations that you did for the workbook are so helpful.
Yeah. Hey, anything to help, you know?
Look, mine's done.
That's adorable. I love the way you put the little feet.
I just glued them on.
Because honestly, that's how Jake stands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silly boy.
Where Enzo has kind of that wide stance. So, whoop. And then I would just glue his tail to the back, although I might add some stitches. All right, we are out of time. So I'm going to finish this off camera. We can share some pictures with you guys.
And if you have any questions, now is a great time to ask.
Yes, any extra questions? And then I have a quick little announcement. Any other questions, Anna?
So we did get a lot of questions on the thread making tiny knots and getting tangled. So I did ask Krista, and she does use the thread magic. She says it's like a wax, but you can only lightly coat it, otherwise you could get a lot of little fibers stuck to it.
That's a good point. Okay.
Yes, I think, tangling thread is just kind of something that you'll get used to working with and taking out. It's a little bit inevitable, but I think, it's something that you can learn how to work around easily enough.
It's annoying.
But it's just part of the process when you're working with thread.
Just don't pull it. Go in there with your needle and kind of tug the knot out, and it will loosen up. I found that the whole time I was working on these that I was able to get the knot out.
Yes, and worst case, you just cut it. You can tie a little knot to close it off, cut it, and then start anew.
Yeah. All right, so quick announcement for you guys. We are releasing a new skill course on Monday, and we just put it up today so that you can go in and put your name in, get ready. It's for all of our members. This is for anyone who's an annual or even a monthly member. And it's Emily. She's going to be teaching us.
This is my skill course.
Yes. So this is what we call a stitch sampler, and she'll go through all these different stitches in the course. We have created this beautiful little kit for you. And as I wrote in the course, if you go right now, it's up and you can read all the tools and materials and see all the links. But we printed this for you so that you have it all ready to go. It's on this beautiful linen and cotton fabric. It has the name of the stitches on it, and it's easy to follow. And the kit includes all of, oops, this is too big. It's a smaller one of these.
It includes a 7-inch hoop, which is right here. It includes a set of needles. It includes 2 embroidery colored threads, this pink and this green. And that comes with the standard kit. And then we also offer a deluxe bundle that comes with a little thimble and some snips.
And you can go in and kind of decide which bundle you want. You can pick and choose. Or you can, I also said in the post, you can just take a piece of cotton and just practice the stitches along, you know, with this. You don't have to buy this whole thing.
I am so excited for the skill class. I'm really excited.
And the skill class, we're of course going to do a big giveaway. So this is I'm not going to show you guys what's inside, but this is for the skill class. This isn't for today. So if you do this class and finish, we'll have directions for you how to win. This is the giveaway for the class.
And the class isn't out yet. We're just announcing this.
It's Monday.
So you can get your materials if you want to get the kit and get ready to start with us on Monday.
Yeah, that sounds good. Anna, any more questions? And let's pick a winner for today.
All right. I don't see any more questions, but we have people that are really excited about the embroidery skill course. It starts on Monday, and we just share the links to go and make sure you register.
And I'm going to be doing it along with you guys because I am so excited. Yes.
And we have put a winner. We use a random number generator, and the winner today is Sandra Guerrero from Colorado.
All right, Sandra. Oh, here we go. Enzo, where are
Jake,
you?
what do you think? Do you like your little stuffy?
Oh, here we go. Hold on. We got to do a little dog show and tell here. Here we go. We are a dog-friendly office. What do you think, Enzo?
I think it turned out pretty good.
It's hard to tell which one is the real and which one's the stuffy.
Oh, anyway.
Super cute.
Okay, I'm glad you guys are here with us today, having so much fun and zipping through this class, and I can't wait to finish this up and have it sitting on my little bookshelf.
Yeah, and we'll see you tomorrow for our next
Which we are going to be making the felt flower anemone, and I'm so excited about making that one. So join us tomorrow, same time, same place. All right. Enzo says goodbye.